with a Destiny video. Today I'm going to present you an in-depth guide on how to use fusion rifles correctly, and we are going to have a look into what makes a good fusion rifle. Also, I will share you a technique how you can snipe with a fusion rifle, so stay with me until the end of the video. This guide will be mainly focused on PvP, as it is much more tricky to have kills with a fusion rifle in PvP than in PvE. First of all, how does fusion rifles fit in the meta? Well, John Wisniewski, Bungie's sandbox designer, who was responsible for the Weapon Tuning 2.0 update, mentioned the state of fusion rifles in the weapon hierarchy. John mentioned that fusion rifles are optimal at mid-range, where targets are easier to track, but they are not close enough to attack while charging up. It requires combat foresight and the ability to predict targets' movement to use effectively. So basically, when you are using a fusion rifle, you have to stay out of the range of shotguns, but also not too far away where your bolts will not be effective. You will probably lose when you are competing head-on-head with a shotgun, as shotguns are a hit scan weapon. What this means is that when a shotgun is fired, it will instantly hit whatever the reticle is pointing at. This in contrast with a fusion rifle, which fires projectiles that takes time to travel. A rocket launcher would be a good example of a non-hit scan weapon. So you will need to stay out of shotgun range, but you also can't let your enemies stay too far away, or else you won't be able to kill them. When using fusion rifles, you will need to be very aware of the space between you and the enemy. With practice, you will learn what is the best engagement distance. We have some good news though. With the latest April update, the stability has been increased for fusion rifles. In the next section, I will explain why stability is beneficial and how that affects fusion rifles. Now we know in what kind of range we are operating in, let's talk about the technicalities of a fusion rifle. We will specifically be talking about stability and range and how this affects the gun. In order to get the most out of your fusion rifle, you want to have high stability that will help with keeping the fusion bolts grouped together. And secondly, you want a high range stat, as this helps the bolt travel longer distances, so it will land more reliably on your target. You can also say that stability helps tighten the bolts and range helps with carrying the damage over a certain distance. Okay, now we have covered the theory, let's put this all in practice. There are a couple of techniques that I want to share with you. The first obvious technique is to charge behind cover and pop out at the last second. This technique is probably not a surprise to most of the players. This might work for the first time, but more advanced players can easily adapt to this. So therefore I have the following advanced techniques for you. Because of the charge time, you will need to find a way to surprise your enemies. One way to do that is to be unpredictable with your movements, by utilizing the vertical space that you have. Try to approach your enemies from the air and then finish them off with a follow-up melee or grenade. Other ways to utilize your vertical space is sliding. Sliding makes you hard to kill and track, and this movement also fits very well with a fusion rifle. Because you can charge while you are sliding, especially with quick charging fusions, your shot will be synced while you are exiting from your slide animation when you do this correctly. With this technique you can close the gap or increase the distance, if that is the space that you need in that specific situation. You will have control of your spacing and your enemy will be having a hard time to track you. Jumping and sliding can give you a slight advantage in your one-on-one engagement by utilizing the element of surprise. I want to talk to you about drag scoping. This term is widely used with snipers where you scope in and drag your scope towards your target to get the kill. Why am I talking about this? Well, most fusion rifles have vertical recoil patterns. As a result, most fusion rifle users tries to aim for the feet and let the recoil go up to hit the other body parts. What most people don't know is that you can also drag scope with a fusion to increase your accuracy. When you drag scope a fusion rifle, you can keep the bolts tighter together and increasing your chance for a one-hit kill. Since the recoil is upwards, while firing you simply need to pull down the gun slightly downwards to keep the bolts together. And this technique works for any fusion rifle regardless of the stability stat. You might need to practice this a bit before you can consistently do this, but once you master this technique, you will be able to one-shot guardians from ridiculous ranges. Basically, this technique turns fusion rifles into snipers. I hope this technique will help you bring back some fun with fusion rifles and make this gun type more enjoyable. Go try out fusion sniping in the Crucible, you will have a blast. If you are wondering what the best PvP fusion rifles are that you can easily obtain, go ahead and see my other videos where I introduce you to the top 3 best PvP fusion rifles in the game. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you can hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe to stay up to date on my latest videos. I will be making more how-to and weapon review videos, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later, Guardians.